You're listening to the 40 Fit Radio podcast dedicated to the 40-plus community. Join us as we discuss the truth about fitness and health using science, reason, and the experiences of our host and content experts. Welcome to the 40 Fit Nation. Hey, welcome back to the 40 Fit Radio and welcome back to the 40 Fit Nation. This is Coach D and I've got Coach Trent with me.
Hello.
And we are here on a balmy, beautiful fall. This isn't fall yet in Texas, but it's still the summer. It's kind of, have we had our first day of fall yet?
Well, I think we did.
Did we already have our first day of fall?
I think we did. But
I've been in Colorado elk hunting, so I don't even know what it is.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, the problem is it's hard to know because it's still 98 degrees outside.
Yeah, it's true.
In the middle of September.
Yeah, I was in my truck the other day. It was like 100 in my truck, and we're in September. So, but that's not unusual for Texas. If you're from Texas and you're a Texican, then we're used to this. Yeah. This is just how it is. But I did just get back from Colorado on an archery elk hunt, and finally, after 8 years, well, this is my 8th season to hunt elk on public land with my bow. I finally harvested a bull and packed out the meat, and we will be having some lovely elk savory meats here soon. So I'm so excited. We're going to invite Trent and the missus over, and we're going to have some elk filet mignon and some asparagus and some wonderful salads and some wonderful red wine and just enjoy the time.
Fantastic. So, I like it. Well, congratulations, first of all.
I tell you, the guy I hunted with was amazing, and we may even do an episode on that because I think I learned a lot of valuable personal lessons through doing this over the last 8 years, and we'll continue to do it next year and the following year. I love to hunt, but today we're going to talk about goals, and the reason. Have we done a goals episode before?
I think we've talked about goals, but we haven't done a goals episode.
Yeah, so we were sitting here today just talking about different subject topics, and we were talking about programming principles and volume and intensity and what we do with our client base and how we structure different workouts and what do we do to tweak this program with an intermediate or advanced lifter or someone who wants to do more conditioning. What do we do in the life cycle of our client basis when they get or the life cycle of our clients when they get a little bit farther down the road in their training and they're reasonably strong. They're no longer weak as clients. And I begin to think to myself, well, it really matters. What do they want to do? It really does.
Right.
But we have the same goal as coaches for every single client that walks in the door to start with until they can prove to us otherwise that they don't need that much of that. And that is to make them stronger.
Exactly.
And so once we get that behind us at some level of proficiency and they're reasonably strong, then we start coming into not a problem area, but a more difficult area to navigate creativity wise. And I just had a meeting with our women's class this last week when we got back from elk hunting. When I got back, I had a meeting just to say, hey, where do you guys want to go? What do y'all want to do? By the way, a shout out to Beth and Brenda, who are members of our gym. They did the Barbell Logic online strength meet.
Right.
With the USSF, I guess, was part of that deal. So it was the press, the squat, and the deadlift. And Beth, our 67-year-old female lightweight masters lifter, won her age and weight class. She won the masters lightweight class.
All right. Fantastic. Nice job, Beth. Nice job.
So,
Do you remember her lifts?
Let me think. The press was, I want to say the press was 88 pounds, maybe, single. The deadlift was 165, I believe, and the squat was 144. And I think Beth weighs about in the 120s, and she's 67 years old.
Yeah, I was about to say, those are both well over body weight.
Yeah. I mean, she killed it. She crushed it.
That's fantastic.
And we left weight on the platform. We left opportunity on the platform. But for her, I mean, and this is a perfect example to go into this conversation. And by the way, Brenda did fantastic too. I think She ended up getting third, maybe in the same class. So, but they both did great.
We got to give a shout out to Brenda. She just pulled. I don't know if it's part of the meet or not. But she just
part
pulled
of the meet.
So a PR of 185. 185 deadlift, which is again that's well over body weight for her.
She just crushed it, and we were really proud of her with that great lift. But I mean, this kind of rolls into that conversation that we have with our clients all the time, and that is, what are your goals? What do you want to do with your fitness program? People come to me. I've got a guy I've got to respond to in an email here shortly, probably later today, and he's getting ready to try to become a police officer, and he has some goals, and he wants us to help him structure a program on the nutrition and training side so that he can pass the PT test and make sure that he's proficient. And then once he gets in the academy, things will need to change there too, so we'll have to modify some things. But, that's the number one thing I want to know with my client. Right up front, what are your goals? Now, I will probably fit into your goals the fact that your primary goal should always be on the front end of a program to get stronger until we develop basic proficiency. But then if you take someone like Beth, who is very strong for her age and size, what's next?
Right.
What do we do next with them? And so our inputs should always be driven by what we want our outputs to be.
Right.
What do we want it's a reaping and sowing type thing. What do we want to come out of our varying training interventions throughout the program? And we look at that from a microcycle standpoint on a workout by workout basis, on a weekly basis, on a semi-monthly basis, on a monthly basis, quarterly, biannually, and yearly basis. What do we want to achieve? So I think that's key that we keep that in the front of our minds and that we design our programming based on what our client base wants.
Right, so, exactly. Yeah, and I think there's we've got several clients in our gym now who are kind of in this stage where they've hit, they've essentially hit in terms of strength progression, they would be what we'd consider sort of middle intermediates, right? They've run through a couple cycles of a Texas method or heavy, light, medium style program, and they've hit some big PRs, and they're kind of sitting around like, well, what's next? And this ties into a couple of conversations that we've had. One is, how strong is strong enough?
Right.
It's as much a personal decision as a practical one. And also, we've talked about in the past, we did an episode, I believe, in the 30s or the early 40s, where we talked about the value of competition. Right. And so some of our members have gone that route. They've decided to sign up for competition. Our gym member, Donnie, is going to be going to the USSF Nationals here coming up in a couple months. And so I think for him, that has helped define his goals for him, right? He wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do with his fitness. He's a big, strong dude.
Yeah. I think he did a Highlands Games too. He did or did he do the Highlands Games?
That's on the radar.
No, that's on the radar.
That's on the radar.
We've been talking about
I know.
that.
We got to get kilts made.
I have another client. Yeah, exactly. We need kilts. I have another client that barbell training guy, Craig, and he did a Highlands game. He took some of his strength and went out there and functionally used it by doing some competition. He's also done USSF meets too.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that one event has driven kind of his programming model to that point.
Right.
And so, no, great points.
So I think number one is, we can pick a thing and put it on the calendar, right? Pick an event, a competition, a race, a lifting event, whatever it is, and that can help define our goals.
Right.
But we have the other kind of client who is reached a fairly high level of proficiency with their lifting. They've done the work, they've gotten strong, and they're kind of looking around like, now what? And maybe competition isn't really their cup of tea.
Right, sure.
So what would you recommend for a client who has done the strength work, who has made it to some level of intermediate training with their strength work, let's say, but is unsure of what to do next? And I would probably say most of our population is probably also at that point still wanting to look better than they do currently.
Yeah.
So maybe aesthetics is part of the goal.
Right. Well, I think that's got to be part of the goal. I think, we've always said this. I've always said this, and people don't like to hear this on the podcast, but some people, they say it grosses them out, but people want to look good naked. I mean, everybody wants to look good and feel good about the way they look when they look in the mirror, no matter what their age. It might be more age specific. If you're a 50-year-old, you might not look good as it. Well, what people say is as good. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. At the end of the day,
what are you trying to say there?
Well, I'm just saying that my body looks different today than it did when I was 20.
Okay.
I hope it looks better, but the reality is I've got some wrinkles here and there, and women and men both see the signs of aging in their bodies. I had this conversation with an older client the other night, and she's got great she's got great body composition, a good balance between fat and good healthy fat and muscle mass, but no matter what, her skin has less elasticity and it's wrinkled. She's not going to change that with barring plastic surgery. She's not going to change that. And that's just the way it is. So we can only create so much youthfulness, so much. Now, capacity-wise, she has the youthfulness of someone 20, 30 years younger. That's really where it matters, because functionally. But if you did all this work and there was no external appearance change at all, most people would be disappointed. Most people would definitely be disappointed.
And I think we know a lot of guys who they maybe lift for, let's say, a year or so, right? And they've gotten pretty strong. They put on some good muscle mass, but still kind of got the belly hanging around.
Right. And so they want to lean up a little bit. So I think we're lying to ourselves if we don't think that there's a part of the human psyche that is a little narcissistic and a little self-involved, and we want to look good. In our own mind's eye, we want to determine what that is, and I'm not going to put a label on that or take one off. I'm just saying that everybody in their own mind's eye wants to look good for what they think looks good. And so, I think that that's part of the equation. I think that if you take someone that's an intermediate and they've gotten reasonably strong, and let's say they've improved in most of the areas that we've been training initially for in their fitness program, then we have to sit down with them and say, okay, where do we go next? And that's what I did exactly with the ladies the other night. Where do we go next? So I took 5 different areas, and I asked them to respond on 5 different questions what they want to do. And I'll give you a good example. One of those questions was, what is something that you want to do that involves the gym that's fun? That you think would just be fun.
Sure, yeah.
And you know what they chose? They said, well, we want to go out and we want to do a group ladies event where we go out and we throw axes, or we go out to dinner together, or we go out and we do a social, or we go out to the ranch and we shoot guns, or we go ride horses, or we go do a hike together, or we go out and we do something that's fun, or we want to do a small competition together here. But they're looking at more of the social aspects too of what training does for our quality of life. You and I were talking earlier that people want to be in a tribe. They want to be in a group where they're developing relationships and they're socializing, they're getting to know each other. That is part of training. That is part of training for life.
Yeah.
Part of training for life and being a part of the 40 Fit Nation is finding commonalities among each other, enjoying spending time with each other training. I mean, it's fun when we get to train together. We don't get to train together as often because of our schedules. Trent and I don't, but I enjoy training with our clients. Definitely. And I enjoy training with other buddies, and stuff. It's just, there's a lot of camaraderie there. But I think the goals, if we have someone that's in that intermediate phase of lifting, then I would specifically go to them and say, okay, you're strong. What do you want to do with this? Where do you want to go with this? How strong is strong enough? I'll never make that decision for a client. And now, the only time where I will try to give my feedback as to whether they're strong enough is if I start to hear things that don't make sense for their quality of life and health long term.
Okay.
If they tell me their knees are aching, or if they tell me that their shoulders are aching, and I know that it's not a specific injury, that it's just the fact that they're loading pretty heavy, then I might try to modify their programming and see if we can still drive strength and help their joints to become less symptomatic. But my experience has been that most people, as they get into the heavier loads, much heavier loads, and when I'm talking about heavier loads. It varies from individual to individual, but usually if you're out there listening today, what you might think is heavy is probably not what I'm thinking is heavy.
Right.
So if you think that if you're a male and you weigh 185 and you're 50 years old and you think 185 pound deadlift is heavy, I don't think so.
Yeah. No.
So, I mean, it's got to be reasonably heavy for your size and for your strength capacity and what it does to your joints loading wise. But, we always hear strength coaches say something like, well, joints do really well with loading. Joint health is actually better when you load it, and cartilage actually needs loading because it reduces potential cartilage atrophy, and it improves the hydrophilic qualities of cartilage. Yes, that is true up until a certain point.
Right.
And then when the load gets heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier, there does come a point where you lose the sweet spot in that rationale.
Right.
There does come a point to where you lose that.
Well, I think
or it declines. I wouldn't say lose it declines.
Yeah, I think we've discussed that a little bit in the past, that your muscle belly's ability to adapt it's more robust than your connective tissue.
Well, your connective tissue is even better than your joint cartilage.
Right.
Joint cartilage we wouldn't consider connective tissue. We would consider that joint cartilage.
Sure. Yeah. And a lot of that's related to vascularity. We've talked about this, right? So your muscle belly is very vascular.
Properties, blood flow.
Tendons, less so. Ligaments, less so.
Even less.
Yeah. Right.
Cartilage, minimal blood supply.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't heal as well. It doesn't have the same viscoelastic properties that other connective tissue and tissues do in the body. And so then again, we talk about this idea of goals.
Right.
My goals might change for that individual if I sense that they're losing the balance of fitness and health.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
I used to always say that, CrossFit athletes that were games athletes were crazy fit, but maybe not very healthy. I had a guy one time say, well, how can that be? I said, well, it's obvious. I said, have you ever met a world-class marathoner? They're constantly dealing with colds or infections or upper respiratory infections or overtraining, or they're way past the curve of general fitness.
Right.
And they're on the leading edge of their maximum genetic potential and capacity. And the same thing can happen with strength athletes or any endeavor,
right?
Any fitness endeavor, endurance athlete, strength athlete, whatever.
We say that all the time in the NFL and college football athletes, right? Those guys are crazy fit. They're extremely powerful, and those are extreme power athletes.
They're injured all the time,
constantly injured, right? Yeah.
And if that was truly healthy, then football players,
and we see them when they retire. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and they walk like, they're in their 50s, retired. They walk like they're 90.
Yeah.
I mean, the health statistics on NFL players is terrible after retirement.
Right.
And so my goal as a coach is always to meet my clients' needs. But there's a part of me too when I put on my white coat as a PT, and I put on that white coat and I say yes, but I also want to balance the fact that I don't want to hurt you potentially when I know that I'm putting you at too much risk, or I also want to make sure that I'm trying to present to you that this is the fitness health continuum. You might be tipping the scale one way or another.
Right.
And I just want you to have that knowledge. It's then your decision. You're a big boy, a big girl. It's your decision to decide what you want to do with it from there. But I know a lot of CrossFit members of local gyms. I know a lot of lifters that are way past the curve of fitness and health. And my goal as part of 40Fit and the founder of 40Fit is to present information to you that allows you to maintain a healthy balance. Then if you decide to go out and do something competitively, that's your deal.
Right.
But you need to recognize that you may be tipping the scales for a while.
Yeah. And I think all this is to say that the goal of simply feeling good is okay. That's
Absolutely,
an okay goal,
yeah.
right? And I think sometimes the rhetoric can be confusing to people who don't have coaches, right? So let's say that, the rhetoric for people who haven't trained yet, especially strength training, is, screw your feelings. Your feelings don't matter, right? And they really don't, because you're not calibrated yet.
Right.
What you think is hard
RPE
is not
matter
hard,
to
right?
you,
If you're a 185 pound guy and you have a 185 deadlift, that's not hard yet.
Right, exactly. That's not heavy.
So the rhetoric for that person needs to be like, forget your feelings. It doesn't matter, right? But if we roll the clock forward, now we have a guy or a lady who's been training for a year or two, and they are truly hitting some heavy loads for their capacity, right? Maybe they can get stuck in that rhetoric of like, oh, well, I should just keep pushing. I need to forget my feelings. Well, no, at that point, it's okay to kind of take a step back. So like, yeah, am I feeling good right now?
Yeah.
And if the answer is, well, I'm not where I want to be on that fitness health continuum, it's okay to take a step back to self-correct where you want to be in the path.
Right. And I would probably say more than just saying that it's okay, because I think you're being careful about how you say that, because we all do in the world of strength coaches. What I really probably think is a better way to say that, or another way to say that, is this. It should probably be the goal.
Yeah.
It should probably be the goal. If we want to do this, if you have a reasonable squat and a reasonable press and bench press and deadlift, you might be able to do that way into your later years.
Yeah.
But if you have a crushing squat, press, deadlift, and bench press now, where are you going to be in 20 years? No one knows. We don't know. We can't predict your individual genetics or how your body's going to tolerate it. But observationally, I would say this. When I look at older lifters that have gone to a very high competitive level, and I look at them today, or I look at any athlete in any sport that has for a length of time tried to maintain that very, very high capacity, they're not that healthy anymore.
Right.
They're not as balanced fitness and health-wise. And so my goal is to present to, my client and the community at large that it's okay to not want to become a competitive lifter. If I've competitively lifted, you have too, Trent, but not everybody wants to do that. I think as coaches, sometimes we forget that not everybody wants to sit around reading 3 or 4 or 5, 300, 400 page books on exercise physiology and on strength training principles.
Right.
Not everybody wants to do that. Now, in the average person's mind that's coming into our gym, that's going to present as a member of our gym or a client, we have to keep it in mind that this guy might be a banker and he just wants to feel good, be strong again, and look good. It's as deep as that. The process is refining for him. It does make him a better banker. It does make him able to suffer more. It does teach him some things about finishing, and it teaches him about voluntary hardship and all these different principles.
Right.
But it may not be something that he's going to highlight. It may not be something that he really did this for. And then you have the individual that come in and they're a total barbell geek, and they want to get way into this stuff. And their goal is to become a competitive lifter or to learn everything they can, eventually be a coach. That's a different population. But I think that if we really are truthful with ourselves, what we really want is anyone to walk in the door and make them stronger.
Right.
And then shape our program at some point once we've built a good foundation like we've talked about in the past. We want to be able to basically shape our program around what their goals are. And if one of their goals is not consistent with what we think they should be doing, we owe it to them as coaches to give them our quote unquote, and I'll use air quotes, advice. But then again, if we disagree with the goal, we can just say, I'm not going to do that for you. And we have that purview. I mean, we have that right to do that.
Yeah. If somebody comes in and wants to be a bodybuilder, that's cool.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not the guy.
That's right. I'm not either. Right.
And
that's
okay. Yeah.
Just not our thing. There's a guy down the street though.
Right. So I think this is interesting. I think we have another podcast here, and that podcast is defining what is health.
Yeah.
Right. Because we've been talking about this health fitness continuum.
Yeah.
And I think we all understand what you mean, right? Mm-hmm. And I think fitness is pretty easy to define. I think we've defined fitness pretty well.
Sure.
We can do that in hard physics terms, right?
10 general physical skills. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Your ability to produce force, power, all that kind of stuff, right? Health is a little bit more nebulous. Like, I think we all know what a healthy person feels like, looks like, walks like, all that kind of stuff. But when you actually try to pin down what is health, I think that's something we need to do in another podcast.
Yeah.
Because that and that answer is, again, it's probably more of a sliding scale. It's more of that continuum. But I'd be curious to kind of dig into that.
Yeah, there's a definition as to what is health from a medical science standpoint, and that would be an individual who is devoid of disease. an individual who does not have disease or disease process. But we go way deeper than that in regards to what is the practical application of health, and is there a level above just normal health metrics that we really need to aspire to and achieve to? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we should compare ourselves to the average Western culture cohort as to what health is and let them define it. I think we should be defining that based on just good solid science principles and what the human genome could actually produce.
Yeah.
And so, so goals, guys. So go out there and get you some goals. Trent, you want to wrap us up here, dude?
Yeah. So let's wrap up here. Number one, think about some things that would be fun to do with your fitness. If you're struggling with figuring out where you should go next with your fitness, what would be fun to do, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a competition, but not everybody's competition minded. Maybe it's just an activity. Maybe you've always wanted to hike a mountain or whatever it is.
Use your fitness.
Go and use your fitness. Yeah. Find some ways you can do that and do it with a group. Join a tribe, find a new social circle where you can use your fitness and learn some new skills in the process. Number two, it's okay to feel good. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your fitness does not have to come at the cost of your health if you don't want it to. Right. I think we've said it enough, and competitors understand the bargain that they're making in being competitive in that pursuit. But if you're not competitive, but you're kind of feeling like you're tipping over into the side of sacrificing health for fitness, then it's okay to kind of realign your goals and pull back and adjust your training as necessary. Right. And I think three, if you have a coach, have that discussion with your coach, and then, be open to some feedback. Maybe your coach has a perspective on where your gaps are in your fitness, or maybe where you are on that health fitness continuum that you may not realize you have, right?
Yeah.
You may not realize exactly where you are. So make it a conversation. You ultimately are in control of where you're going to go and what your goals should be, but don't be afraid to have that conversation with a trusted advisor.
Yeah, I think you've got to be openly sharing with the person you're paying. So if you're paying someone to help you reach your goals, they need to know what they are.
That's right.
I would say the number 4, the last thing would be this. Your goals should initially be to build a foundation first. It's just like investing. Don't go out and do put and calls and margins and all these fancy, investment strategies and risky investment strategies, or at least I wouldn't, before you basically have ordered your own house and have some basic financial principles put into place. Build the foundation. And for us as strength coaches and fitness coaches, strength is the bedrock, strength is the foundation. So that's a pretty easy goal to attack on the front end for 99.9% of the clients out there. They're novices. Let's just hit that first. After that, be willing to be flexible and adjust your goals based on what you want. And like Trent said, talk to your coach, talk to your fitness advisor, and get their feedback. And if they can't help you reach your goals, then find you another. So, but yeah, I think that's great advice, and we're going to move on, man.
All right, excellent. Well, let's sign off here, guys. As always, thank you for listening. Go and follow us on Instagram at 40Fit Radio. Also, on Facebook, we have a new Facebook group. It's called 40Fit Nation. We're going to be moving all discussion over there, and we're going to be having more discussion. 40Fit Masters community has
So go to it and follow it, or whatever. What do you do on Facebook? You like it.
Like it. Subscribe to it.
I'm so...
See, all good people use Instagram.
I'm so interweb out of it. Yes, Instagram's so much easier.
So first of all,
I used to be on Facebook, and now I like Instagram, man.
First of all, just go ahead and get Instagram, and then use that
at 40Fit Radio.
And for the rest of you degenerates, we have 40Fit Nation, where we'll be having more conversations and be posting more content. So go ahead and move on there. I know 40Fit Masters community has been kind of, that's been kind of dead for a while. We've had some problems with spam and other stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and create a fresh group, so go there, and then as always you can also email us at info@40fit.com. info@40fit.com.
In the front makes it confusing. info@40fit.com.
That's right.
There we go.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
Take care, guys.